The tea house fell silent the moment his hand hit the table. Porcelain cups rattled and jasmine tea nearly spilled over the edges. His charcoal suit, tailored to perfection, framed broad shoulders and a quiet authority that carried consequences in Hong Kong's Causeway Bay. The 6 men seated with him reacted instantly, backs straightening, hands shifting beneath jackets where weapons waited. All of this because the waitress had told him the private booth he wanted was already reserved. He switched to rapid Cantonese, sharp and cutting, meant to belittle. He assumed she wouldn't understand a word. Customers lowered their gaze. Some checked their phones. No one wanted to be part of what was unfolding. The waitress, an American woman in her mid-20s, stayed calm. Dark blonde hair in a low bun, simple black apron, no makeup beyond lip balm. She carried a quiet confidence that refused to bow. 3 tense seconds passed before she leaned forward. "I understood everything you just said," she replied in fluent Cantonese. Her accent carried a soft Western touch, but the fluency was undeniable. His expression froze, color draining from a face that rarely showed surprise. She continued, still in Cantonese, telling him she heard every insult and every threat, and that he could either wait 15 minutes like everyone else or choose another tea house. His men exchanged looks, some confused, some impressed, none willing to speak. He stared at her now, not with rage, but with interest. He switched to English, smooth and controlled. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" His voice was softer but still threaded with danger. "My family moved here when I was 13, she said, meeting his eyes. "I grew up between Hong Kong and New York." A short pause. Then, politely, "Would you like to wait at the bar, or should I recommend somewhere else?" A flicker of respect crossed his face, and something darker, more intrigued. "The bar is fine," he said, standing with slow precision. "And bring your best whiskey." "Neat." Conversations resumed in low whispers as he walked away. Only then did she exhale, hands trembling as the adrenaline settled. Later, when she delivered dishes to his table, he left a red envelope under his glass and slid a business card toward her. Li Wei. No title. No company. Just a number embossed in gold. "My apologies for earlier," he said quietly. Sincerity touched his voice, though the danger in his eyes remained. "Perhaps I can make it up to you another time." 2 days later, Amelia stepped into her favorite coffee shop, escaping sudden autumn rain. Her hair clung to her cheeks as she shook off her coat. The warm aroma of roasted beans wrapped around her, a comfort after a morning translating legal documents tied to powerful people and bigger secrets. She ordered her usual cappuccino with an extra shot and turned to look for a seat. That's when she saw him. Li Wei, alone by the window with a leather notebook open. No suit jacket today, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the edge of a tattoo disappearing beneath the fabric. Recognition sparked in his eyes when he looked up, followed by something that felt like pleasure. He closed the notebook and gestured to the seat across from him, an invitation that felt dangerous and impossible to refuse. "I didn't expect to see you here," Amelia said as she sat, her voice steadier than her heartbeat. The cafe suddenly felt smaller, quieter, charged. His smile softened the sharp lines of his face. "I own the building," he said, voice low and smoother than she remembered. "I come here when I need to think." Amelia studied him, noting the faint shadows beneath his eyes and the tension he carried even while sitting still. "You look like someone with too many secrets," she said before she could stop herself. His expression shifted, surprise softening the controlled mask he wore. "Most people are too afraid to speak to me like that," Li Wei said, leaning in slightly. "Why aren't you?" Amelia wrapped her hands around her cup, grounding herself. "My dad used to say fear is just curiosity that hasn't found its voice yet. And I've always been too curious for my own good." Li Wei's laugh came unexpectedly, low and genuine, drawing a few glances from nearby tables. "Your father was a wise man," he said, watching her with renewed interest. "Did he teach you to stand your ground, even with men like me?" Her gaze dropped, a shadow passing through her expression. "My father died when I was 15. But yes." He taught me not to fold just because someone tries to intimidate me. Silence settled between them, not awkward, but full of unspoken truths. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the windows, like a private rhythm meant only for them. Li Wei broke the silence. When I was a boy, my grandmother used to read me Tang poems. His voice softened with memory as he recited a verse. Amelia lifted her head, recognizing it. The moonlight before my bed, I took it for frost on the ground, she translated gently. You used Li Bai to shut me down at the restaurant, he said with a faint smirk. There are many sides to me that may surprise you, Amelia. The way he said her name settled under her skin. Amelia's apartment was small, bright, and filled with pieces of two worlds, Western novels beside Chinese poetry collections, New York photos next to Hong Kong skylines. Soft classical music played as she worked, translating old court documents, red pen marking notes in the margins. Her life was intentionally calm. Routine anchored her. Teaching and translation projects by day, reading or cooking at night, occasional calls with her mother in New York. Peace had been a choice after losing her father and watching her mother rebuild from the ground up. Li Wei's world couldn't have been more different. He sat in his high-rise office overlooking Victoria Harbor, reports spread across the table, territory disputes, shipments, names of men who wanted what he controlled. The Li family had run operations along the waterfront for decades, respectable companies in daylight, far more profitable ones beneath. Responsibility pressed on him like a vice. He dismissed his men with a nod, alone with the glittering skyline, a city he protected yet controlled from the shadows. A framed photo of his father hung on the wall, a reminder of duty, legacy, and the price of inheriting power he'd never asked for. 3 weeks had passed since the cafe, yet Amelia lingered in his thoughts more than he liked. Her honesty unsettled him. She didn't fear him, didn't flatter him, didn't calculate her words for survival. She was real and dangerously refreshing. He picked up the card she'd given him. Amelia Hart. Freelance translator and lecturer. Hong Kong University Language Department. A doorway into her world. Logic told him to stop. She lived in light and truth. He lived in shadow and necessity. But she had awakened something he thought he'd lost, a craving for something genuine. He reached for his phone, paused only briefly, then dialed. The sun dipped low as he waited, shadows stretching across his office. Amelia Hart speaking. Her voice was slightly breathless, professional but warm. It's me, he said. No preparation. No strategy. I wanted to ask if you'd have dinner with me tomorrow evening. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with every reason this was a terrible idea. Two lives on opposite sides of a line that shouldn't cross. There's a small place in Shangwan, she said at last. 7 o'clock. I'll meet you there. As he confirmed, something shifted inside him. For once, business would wait. He wanted something for himself. Amelia hung up and stared at her phone, wondering which part of her had agreed to this. Something in his voice had slipped past her defenses, straight into the part of her that wanted more than safety or routine. The restaurant in Shangwan buzzed softly when she arrived, warm lantern light reflecting against wooden glass, giving everything a golden glow. She spotted him immediately. Li Wei sat in a corner booth away from windows, strategically chosen. 2 of his men waited near the bar, discreet, but impossible to miss once you knew what to look for. You look beautiful, he said as she sat across from him. His eyes lingered, not on her dress, but on her. The owner approached with a bottle of wine, bowing to Li Wei with clear respect and a hint of fear. Amelia noticed diners glancing their way, curiosity mixed with caution. People are afraid of you, she said quietly as the wine was poured. Does that bother you? Li Wei slowly turned the glass in his hand, watching the deep red swirl. Fear creates distance, he said. And sometimes, distance is necessary. They ordered in Cantonese, conversation flowing more easily than either expected. He spoke about cities he'd lived in, traveling through Taiwan and Vancouver. She shared stories of growing up between New York and Hong Kong, learning the language, finding parts of herself in both cultures. My grandmother would have liked you, he said softly. She believed strong women are the ones who keep powerful men honest. Amelia felt the warning sirens in her mind dim with each shared story, each laugh, each glance that lingered a moment too long. Li Wei felt something shift too. He was used to people choosing words carefully, always managing his reactions, treating him as a threat to survive or a power to impress. But Amelia spoke to him as if he were human. Why did you really invite me to dinner? She asked suddenly, direct and clear. Her green eyes held his, demanding truth, not charm. His usual answers disappeared. Because you're the first person in years who saw a man instead of a name. Amelia didn't smile. She nodded quietly, accepting the honesty. It was enough. Outside, a black car slowed near the entrance. Another parked behind it. Men stepped out, adjusting jackets, hands moving near holsters. Li Wei's phone vibrated. One glance at the screen and his entire energy shifted. We're leaving, he said, signaling his men. His tone was calm but sharp enough to cut the air. Now, Amelia. The mood flipped instantly. His men at the bar straightened, movements revealing weapons. What's happening? She whispered, pulse spiking. Li Wei leaned in, eyes locked on hers. There are men outside who mean us harm. Trust me, and I'll explain later. 6 days passed before she heard from him again, 6 days of watching shadows, replaying that night, questioning what she had stepped into. His men had escorted her through the back exit, silent and efficient, all the way to her apartment, ensuring she was safe before vanishing. The next morning, the news reported a shooting in Changwon. 2 men dead, described as a criminal conflict between local groups. She recognized the restaurant's name. She could have been in the middle of it. When Li Wei finally called, his voice was different. Tight, with regret woven through it. I need to see you, he said. To explain, if you'll let me. This time, they met at his penthouse overlooking Victoria Harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, security everywhere, quiet, alert, a clear reminder of the world she was stepping into. Those men were from the Zhao group, Li Wei said as he poured her a whiskey, his movements precise and controlled. They've been trying to take over parts of our harbor routes for months now. Amelia accepted the drink, letting the warmth settle her. And what exactly is your territory? She asked, no longer willing to dance around what she already knew. Li Wei held her gaze for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. Import. Export. Construction. Waste disposal, he began, then his voice dropped. Protection networks. Gambling houses. Control of certain shipping routes. You're in the Triad, Amelia said, not asking, but stating the truth that finally aligned the puzzle pieces she had avoided. The tea house confrontation, the respect, the fear, the armed men, it all made terrible sense. Li Wei didn't deny it. His silence confirmed everything. He stood and walked to the window, harbor lights reflecting across the glass, making him look caught between two worlds. My father built what we have, he said quietly. I inherited both the power and the consequences. Amelia set her glass down gently. The soft clink sounded louder than the storm inside her. I should leave, she said, rising, suddenly aware of how close she had let danger get. You should, he agreed, turning to face her. Walking away now would be the smart choice. The room held its breath, the air thick with something neither knew how to name. Amelia took one step toward the elevator, then stopped. Her reflection met his in the glass as she moved back to stand beside him. I've never been very good at choosing the smart option, she said softly. My mother used to say that was my greatest flaw. Li Wei's hand found hers slowly, gently, a stark contrast to the man newspapers described. Tell me about her, he said, not demanding, but inviting her into his world, truth for truth. Hours passed as they talked, walls lowering as night settled around them. Li Wei spoke of legacy, expectations carved into him since childhood, and the weight he carried as the son of a man feared across the city. Amelia shared pieces of her past, her father's death, labeled a robbery gone wrong, her mother's collapse afterward, her determination to build a life rooted in stability instead of chaos. No masks. No posturing. Just truth. Dawn softened the skyline when Li Wei arranged for a car to take her home. Exhaustion wrapped around them, but the intimacy remained. "This can't work," he said softly in the elevator. "You know that." 3 weeks of fragile happiness followed, a delicate balance of Amelia's quiet life and carefully controlled glimpses into Li Wei's. They met only in private spaces, her apartment, his penthouse, a secluded villa outside the city. Never in public. Never where shadows could reach. The change in Li Wei was subtle, but noticeable. Chen, his most trusted lieutenant, saw it first, the softened edges, the phone calls that drew faint smiles, moments during meetings when Li Wei's mind seemed elsewhere. "They're testing us again," Chen reported one afternoon, placing surveillance photos on the table. "They've been watching the university. Specifically, the language department." Cold slid through Li Wei as he scanned the photos. Amelia leaving her classroom. Buying coffee. Unlocking her apartment door. The message couldn't be clearer. He dismissed Chen with a nod and sat in the darkening office, every possible outcome ending in loss. The Li family had enemies. Always had. Always would. It came with the life. And Amelia had become his weakness, a vulnerability his enemies would exploit. He picked up his phone, his hand steady, his heart not. This call would break them both. She knew the moment she opened the door. His face was too still, too controlled. "You're ending this," Amelia said as he entered. Her voice didn't shake, but her eyes did. "They know about you," Li Wei confirmed, keeping distance between them. "The Zhao group has been watching. Sending a message to me." Chen's photos showed more than Amelia's routine. They showed something worse. A man in a dark coat following her for weeks, outside her classroom, across from her favorite cafe, close enough to touch yet unseen. "His name is Zhao Jian," Li Wei said. "Nephew of the Zhao leader. Cruel. Patient." The threat was precise. They had found his weak point. Amelia's fingers trembled as the truth sank in. Memories resurfaced, her father's final weeks, the subtle warnings he ignored, the staged robbery that ended his life. History repeating. "There's something else," Li Wei said, his voice dropping to a low whisper. He unlocked his phone and handed it to her. On the screen was an intercepted message between Zhao operatives. They discussed her mother, her address in New York, her daily routine, her medication schedule, her weak points. Amelia's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about her anymore. They had reached for the only family she had left. Her mother had rebuilt her life after her husband's death, hard years, fragile progress, sobriety earned inch by inch. Amelia had protected that at all costs. And now it was under threat because of him. "So you're just giving up?" she asked, anger rising to shield the fear crawling up her spine. "I'm protecting you," he said, voice sharpening with resolve. "This isn't a negotiation, Amelia. These men don't bluff. I won't let you be destroyed because of the life I was born into." Silence settled between them, heavy and suffocating. Amelia moved to her bookshelf, fingers brushing the spine of a worn bilingual poetry collection, a grounding ritual, before facing him again. "My father wasn't killed in a random robbery," she said quietly. Her voice held steady, though her hands trembled. "He was FBI. Undercover. Investigating organized crime in Chicago. His cover was blown 2 days before he was murdered." Li Wei stilled, understanding reshaping everything he thought he knew. "You knew who I was from the start," he said slowly. Amelia nodded. "I recognized your name that first night in the tea house. The Li family has a file in U.S. federal records. I've read it, more than once." Li Wei stepped toward her, stopping short of touching her. "Why put yourself in danger? Was this about your father?" Some attempt to finish what he started. A sad, tired smile touched her lips. "At first, I told myself I was just curious. Then I said I was collecting information. But the truth is, she swallowed, eyes unguarded. I fell for the man behind the name, despite every reason not to. Li Wei stepped back, needing distance to hold himself together. You need to leave Hong Kong, he said finally, his tone leaving no room for argument. Tonight. I'll arrange everything, new identity, new work, new life. Amelia shook her head, fear and defiance clashing in her eyes. I won't let them chase me away from everything I built here. This isn't a choice, he said, frustration slipping through as he ran a hand through his hair. The Zhao group won't take you quickly. They'll dismantle your sanity piece by piece, and they'll enjoy it. Cold reality settled between them. By morning, she agreed, not to run, but to disappear temporarily. A research sabbatical, official to the world but in truth a shield until Li Wei resolved the threat. He told her nothing of his plan, not the meeting already arranged with allied families, not the risk he would shoulder alone. Some burdens were his to carry. Their goodbye at the private airfield was brief, too many eyes watching. 6 weeks, Li Wei promised, his hand holding hers a moment longer than safety allowed. Stay safe, until I come for you. As the plane disappeared into the clouds, he returned to the waiting car. Chen sat behind the wheel, documents ready for a dangerous restructuring of power. This plan would either secure the future or end him. Weeks stretched thin as Amelia settled into a secluded villa on the coast of Taiwan, security positioned around the property. She filled her days with reading, research, and writing, but worry gnawed at every hour. The encrypted phone Li Wei gave her stayed silent, except for weekly calls, his voice more strained each time. No matter how calm he tried to sound, she heard the weight. The weight of a man preparing to lose everything, including himself. For weeks into her isolation, Amelia woke to find the head of her security team standing in the kitchen. His expression was controlled, but his eyes revealed something had shifted. He handed her a sealed envelope. Direct orders from Mr. Li, he said quietly, then stepped back to give her privacy. Amelia opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single page containing 3 handwritten lines in Li Wei's unmistakable script. Whatever you hear, don't believe it. Wait for Chen. I love you. Her vision blurred. It was the first time he had written those words without restraint. 2 days later, international news broke across every major channel. Hong Kong Triad figure Li Wei, presumed dead, shot outside his central office in what authorities called a violent escalation between crime groups. Security around Amelia doubled immediately. No explanations, no updates. Just silence and waiting. Chen arrived 3 days after the news, exhaustion etched into his face. He handed Amelia an encrypted drive and 2 new passports. He wanted you to have these, was all he said. No further details, no comfort, just transition. Moments later, she was on a helicopter. The drive explained everything. It contained detailed evidence of the Zhao Group's operations, bribes, offshore accounts, shipment routes, weapon caches, trafficking networks, enough to cripple the organization permanently. But one file stopped her breath. Internal Zhao documents linked them to her father's murder. It hadn't been random violence. The hit had been revenge for his undercover work, details the FBI never released. Amelia sat frozen, staring at the files. These were documents her family never saw because authorities hid the truth to protect their investigation. There was also an audio recording of Zhao Jian laughing about solving the heart problem, describing how he shadowed her father for weeks before staging the robbery that left him dying in a Chicago alley. Amelia's hands shook as she forced herself to listen until the end. Li Wei had included a letter, not a goodbye, but a plan. He wrote that by letting the world believe he was dead, he could destroy the Zhao Group, protect everyone who followed him, and give them both a chance at a life without blood on the door. His confession and evidence were timed to release only after his death, every detail calculated as a final checkmate. The last page contained coordinates to a coastal property acquired through a shell company 3 years earlier. Back then, it was just insurance. After meeting her, it became an exit. A future. Amelia understood the magnitude of his sacrifice, not just for her, but for himself. A life chosen rather than inherited. The raid on Zhao headquarters dominated global news, one of the largest organized crime takedowns in a decade. Amelia watched from a hotel in Vancouver under a new identity, Catherine Miller, visiting scholar. News anchors reported that an unnamed high-level informant dismantled the Zhao Empire and exposed corruption tied to powerful officials across Asia. Speculation exploded online. No one agreed on the informant's identity. Prosecutors offered immunity to several Li associates in exchange for testimony against the Zhao group and corrupt officials. The strategy was surgical, precise, unmistakably Li Wei's design. 2 weeks after the raids, Chen arrived with updates. The remaining Li businesses are legitimate now, he said. All transferred before he disappeared. He planned everything. Amelia listened as Chen described how Li Wei rebuilt the empire from the inside out, a charitable foundation named after his mother, scholarships for children affected by gang violence, safe exit programs for former Triad members, and witness protection for those choosing a legal life. He planned this for months, Amelia whispered, pieces falling into place, his late-night calls, the distant stares, the calculated meetings. The Zhao threat just accelerated his timeline. Chen nodded once, a soft, rare smile appearing. Boss said meeting you changed him. Made him want something different. Something better. Before leaving, Chen handed Amelia one final envelope. The coordinates he sent. Be there in 1 week. Then he was gone. The small coastal town on Jeju Island felt like another world. Waves crashed against black volcanic cliffs as Amelia followed the winding coastal road, her heart pounding with every turn. The cottage stood alone on a headland overlooking the sea, quiet and waiting. She almost didn't recognize him at first. His hair was longer, his face thinner, the tailored suits replaced by simple clothes that made him look younger and more real. Li Wei stood on the porch with his hands in his pockets, watching her approach. For the first time since she met him, he looked uncertain. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, he said as she stepped out of the car. The attempt at humor faltered beneath the vulnerability in his eyes. Would she still choose him now that everything had changed? Amelia approached slowly, taking in the man before her, not the Triad heir, not the feared name, but the man who burned his kingdom down for a chance at a life. So, she said softly, stopping inches away, if you're not Li Wei anymore, who are you now? Inside, the cottage held surprises. In a small study were 2 job offers arranged for them, teaching positions that would allow them to live quietly, far from the world that once hunted him. He had used only clean, legitimate channels, nothing that could trace back to his old life. On a shelf sat several leather-bound journals, his writing from the past year, documenting his disillusionment with the Triad, his fear of bloodshed for those loyal to him, and the moment he began searching for a way out. When I was young, he said, leading her to the back deck overlooking the sea, my grandmother told me a man can't outrun his past, but he can choose what he plants for his future. The ocean stretched wide before them, open and endless, like a future they never believed was possible. Amelia noticed the changes in him. The constant vigilance in his shoulders had softened. The instinct to scan exits remained, but quieter. Most striking was his laugh, full, unshadowed, free. As he spoke about possibilities, small joys, quiet routines, a life without fear, his hands moved animatedly, painting scenes that once felt like fantasy. Finally, he answered her question. Lin Jiao, he said. A new name. A new life. A lecturer in classical Chinese literature at Jeju University, if I accept the offer. Amelia stepped closer, placing her hand on his cheek to feel he was real. Well, Professor Lin will need someone to show him around campus, she murmured. Their kiss was different than any before, no shadows, no fear, just the beginning. 1 year later, Amelia stood in the university faculty lounge, watching Zhihao laugh with colleagues during a welcome reception. He moved through academic circles with ease, his charm and sincerity making him a favorite among the staff. No one questioned their backstory, that they met at a literature conference in Taipei and fell in love among poetry and old libraries. It was close enough to the truth, and safe enough to hide what couldn't be spoken. "Your husband is quite the addition to our department," the dean said beside her. "His paper on reinterpretations of Tang poetry has been accepted for a symposium in Seoul." Amelia smiled, warm and proud, watching Jihao debate translation ethics with another professor. The same strategic mind that once negotiated with crime families now navigated campus politics with disarming ease. Their cottage on Jeju became a true home, built with intention, not fear. Books filled shelves. Soft music drifted through the rooms. Routines formed, gentle and shared. Some nights, Amelia found Jihao on the porch, staring at the dark sea as if still relearning how to breathe without a target on his back. The nightmares came less often now, but when they did, they hit fast, jerking him awake, searching for weapons that were no longer there. Amelia carried ghosts too, her father's voice, his unfinished story, the grief that still sat beside her on quiet nights. They made a pact early on, acknowledged the past when it surfaced, but never let it steal the future they were planting. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were heavy, others soft. But every day, they chose each other. After the reception, Amelia slipped off her shoes to make tea while Jihao walked the property perimeter, not from fear, but habit. Old instincts were hard to unlearn, especially the ones that once kept them alive. Later, beneath moonlight across their bed, he traced her jaw with his fingertips. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, voice low, unsure. "Leaving your career, your name, the life you built?" Amelia turned to him fully. "I didn't lose myself," she said softly. "I found who I was meant to be. And I found us. That's not regret. That's the best decision I ever made." Xiao exhaled, something inside him finally unclenching. He reached for a small box he had carried for weeks. "I've been thinking," he said, opening it to reveal a simple gold band with a small jade stone, the exact shade of her eyes. "Maybe we make this life official. With our new names. A beginning we choose." Amelia's breath caught. No diamonds. No display of power. Just meaning. A year and a half after a tense night in a Hong Kong tea house changed everything, Jihao whispered the same 3 words he once carried like a risk, "No ONEI. I love you." This time, it was a promise. Their coastal community embraced them easily, the quiet literature lecturer and his wife, the visiting poetry scholar. Charming. Private. Kind. No one suspected the vigilance behind their gentle smiles. Amelia found fulfillment teaching adult literacy at the local center, guiding first-generation families hungry to learn. She didn't share the darker chapters of her story. Precautions remained, separate accounts under new identities, a secure satellite phone with one number, Chen, and routine subtle security checks. Not fear. Just wisdom. Each year on her father's birthday, Amelia reopened the encrypted drive, now Jihao's past. Seeing the Zhao syndicate dismantled and its leaders imprisoned brought a quiet justice she and her mother never expected. Her garden became her sanctuary, hands in the soil coaxing life to grow where nothing had been. Jihao often found her there, smiling as she nurtured herbs and flowers, building beauty from the ground up, just as they were doing with their second chance. Outside, waves crashed along the Jeju coastline, steady, constant, forward. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be rewritten, transformed, just as they had been. Some stories begin in darkness. The rare ones find their way into the light. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, comment where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps me bring you more stories.